Hey, welcome everyone to the Archicad User Monthly Webinar for October 2022. My name is Eric Bobrow, and it's my pleasure to introduce Rufus Marizonas and Marius Wividvicius, if I got that close to right, from Team4BIM, as well as three of their clients, Ian Redfern, Tim Ball, and we'll have a couple more coming on to the session a little bit later on. So let us know that you can hear us and or hear me and see us, and we shall get going. So you can use the GoToWebinar questions area, and when you're typing in saying, yeah, I can see you, just tell us where you're calling in from. It's always interesting. So I see Mario from Rio de Janeiro, all right, and Rick from Virginia. So yeah, just let us know. Elizabeth from Pasadena, Tom Palmer from Vancouver, Geraldo from Iceland. All right, Paul from Colorado. All right, we're in Melbourne, Stuart Blake. So we're spanning the globe there. David from Virginia, Jacek from my neighborhood area in Northern California, Carl from Southern California. All right, so we have a good crowd. We have over 60 people in, and I'm sure a few more will be joining us shortly. So today we're going to be talking about outsourcing, and I started to come up with a phrase that I think most of you can relate to. I wish I had another set of hands who could get some of this work done. And here we have Rufus and Marius, whose team is available for Archicad users around the world to get work done. I've been following them, been in discussions with Rufus for many years, going back to at least 2013. I think I checked that maybe was the first email that we had back and forth. So Rufus, welcome. Marius.
Hello.
And Ian, Tim, we'll get to you in a little while. So if you want to just turn off your webcams, and we'll focus on Team4BIM right now, and then we'll have you come back. All right, so Rufus and Marius, welcome.
Yes, hello. Nice to. First of all, I want to thank you for inviting us, and I want to thank also our clients who also joined and agreed to take part in this event. This is first of all, I want to thank all of them because at the starting point that they trusted us with their assignment, with their work, integrating us into their company. And I want to thank you to trusting us and to letting present our work to the wider public.
Excellent. And so Rufus, you're the CEO and owner, and Marius, you direct the outsourcing projects, is that right?
I'm project manager over here, yep.
Okay, all right. So tell us a little bit, Rufus, about how you came into this. I know that you have your own architecture firm, the Architectu Gildiha, as we see in the background there. So that's what you started with, is being an architect and doing work with Archicad. Is that right?
Yes, we started using. Well, first of all, my father is also an architect, so I'm second generation architect. And but my father quit the active stage of his architectural work, and I established my own company. And basically, when I started to work with Archicad, I was really impressed with its capabilities, especially with teamwork capabilities. I stumbled upon very active and very friendly Archicad user community, and somehow we came across with Patrick, architect from USA, who I think will also take part in this webinar. And we started discussion that this would be fully possible using Archicad to start working and integrating our company, our staff into his workflow. It was very interesting to work with Patrick because he was also teaching students, architectural students. So in that sense, we became also his students. He learned us, he introduced us to some of the aspects of drafting, and after that somehow started to expand our client list and expanding also field of activity. For example, we started at first, we did just architectural drafting. After that, we started to do some MEP modeling.
Wait a minute. I'm just going to make you presenter so you can bring up your overview slide and then start to dig in there. So I'll make that happen there. So you'll be able to show that screen.
Screen. I will,
okay. All right. So so you started as an architect, and with your architecture firm, then had the first opportunity to work for Patrick McElhenney and his company in Southern California. You've expanded now, so you're not just doing drafting and not just doing Archicad, but you're doing MEP, you're serving the Revit community, although from what I understand, about 90% of your work is still Archicad based, is that right?
Yes, well, our sincere look at this is that Archicad at this stage is maybe a little bit more user friendly, and users may gain a bit more from this software. So with our main focus is Archicad.
Okay, so I'll encourage you to just go ahead, and you've got a really wonderful overview presentation here. This is a tool, by the way, that I became familiar with a few years ago, but haven't really used, called Prezi, P-R-E-Z or Z-I. And it's really neat because you can lay out a whole bunch of information and zoom in and out, and actually you see at the bottom of the screen there's little left and right arrows, and so it can be self-guided, and you probably are going to just take advantage of the fact that you preset these slides, but it's actually quite a different feel than a PowerPoint because of the way you're zooming in and out and seeing the relationship of the structure of the presentation in a visual way. But take it away. Tell us about your services, and I know you have some examples of what you do architecturally.
So basically now yes, and if returning to Prezi, it also allows to release your creativity with that zooming in and zooming out. Also, this is just some basic of our use. We're not good experts in that. So basically, our companies consist of two parts. One part is works as an architectural company in Lithuania, and another part is which is called Team4BIM, and what's why we are gathered today to talk about it is that we provide drafting BIM modeling. So, and our staff they all take part also in some part of Lithuanian projects. So they see in our office how those working meetings go, and they get understanding that everything starts with a drawing but not finishes with the drawing, and I think that that encourages them to get a bit of the better mindset. So these are some projects of our company that we did in Lithuania. We also use all these tools, Archicad tools, to implement them into real world. So for example, this we used in Lithuania, in Šiauliai, we built manufacturing factory, and we also did as-built model because many of engineers used and worked just in 2D. They did not use the DeskCards or any other expensive software. So during that project management, then we as architects received information from engineers. We also compiled it in one EFC files. So this is some other of our projects. This is just wanted to show that we are doing quite serious projects, big, few thousand square meters. So, and we are using this software and this Archicad capabilities.
Before you go on, I just want to point out for those of you who are looking at the graphics and wondering, well, how did you produce some of those things? So some of what you're doing here is just available when you take your Archicad project into BIMX. And not all Archicad users are even familiar with the fact that BIMX exists and that it's included as part of your Archicad package. But the fact that you can go from a 3D view to a plan or an elevation in a nice transition to sort of make it clear what the drawing is about, and even slice through the building interactively is a wonderful part of BIMX, and you know it communicates, of course, the context of the drawings. So
well, yes, and for example, for this example, we did that BIMX file, then we underlaid the original engineering drawings under this EFC model, that the client could see the original drawings, which was signed by engineer, and on top he can see that 3D model of all MEP systems with attributable information to make it clearer for him how that works. So that was.
So in this case, you modeled based on the drawings. So the drawings had been carefully done by the consultant, and of course were designed to fit into the architectural space. But you then, of course, as part of the coordination, you know, modeled the ductwork and things, so that, yeah, we want to avoid clashes. We want to make sure that everything is going to fit together. So.
Yes, because we wanted to gather the engineers that has the best knowledge and the biggest experience, but somehow they don't use very advanced software. And basically, and young engineers, they use software, but they are young engineers. So that is why we try to, at this project, take more experienced engineers to use our services that we also provide in Team4BIM, and to gather all information in one as a whole, and also during the construction days, because we were supervising the whole building process, we also manage how those systems changed, and after that the owner of the building received that BIMX file with a brand new tablet, so he was very, very happy to have received all documentation in that form.
Do carry on. I'm getting a call from Patrick. He must be having a problem connecting up.
Okay.
Hey, Patrick.
Yes. So basically, these are also our Lithuanian projects, and as architectural company in Lithuania, the biggest retail chain is called Maxima. We are doing also small commercial buildings for them. So as our Team4BIM, the main things that we provide, main services that we provide are objects, terrain models, building modeling, MEP systems, and also we provide drawing, architectural and constructional sets. So basically, this is a short video of our company.
Hello there. I'm Tori, and I'm the HR manager here. Let me take you around the Team4BIM office and show you how we work to help you conquer everyday Archicad and Revit challenges. This is our front desk client.
Yes, well, I will not to stick on it, but basically, we have dogs. We love dogs. The dogs are also part of our team, and yes, they help us to communicate a bit better. So one of the services that we are providing, we are modeling non-GDL based non-parametrical objects with attributable and material information attached to them. So, for example, we can model these objects from a manufacturer specification, or sometimes we also worked with some manufacturers that they wanted to have their object library in Archicad to provide it to interior designers that were working. So we also created that models. Another thing that our services can expand capabilities and save time is terrain modeling. For example, we do sometimes terrain modeling just from scanned PDF files. Also, we create with architectural idea, and then from sketches we attach also pathways, drive-throughs, and in that case we can create really complex terrain models, what can be very extremely time-consuming for architects themselves. We provide building models themselves. Basically, we provide them from sketches. The architect can send us a sketch, or even to the architect, the person who wants to have a model of the building, he can send us a sketch with basic measurements. It can be in metric or in the US system. So, and we based on in feet and inch, based on that we can create Archicad models. we also create Archicad and terrain models from BIMCloud, and also we can also connect that BIMCloud, resample it, or if a client sent us already prepared, so it's this a bit faster. Just
a moment, I want to clarify for those of you who on the call who don't know what a point cloud is. So a point cloud is a collection of data, information that it comes from a certain type of scanning, and there are different devices that'll do this, but basically they all have in common a device is placed somewhere, it's looking around at the environment, and it's getting data about where the solid surfaces are. And in most cases these days, it's actually giving color. So it's saying this is brown, this is black, this is white, etc. Now those point cloud, basically it's just a bunch of little dots. And you can see in the upper left here, this thing that sort of looks like a pointillistic, impressionistic, painting, much like the old, well, I don't know, not surreal, but pointillistic, ways of depicting something in painting. Now you can actually move around these things because it is a 3D model. They'll typically take multiple viewpoints to get a more complete scan of all sides, but it's not solid, and it's not something that you can actually get drawings from. So one of the things that is required is either automatically with some tools, but more manually, just a service, whether it's your own in-house or Team4BIM, goes and then traces this and makes an Archicad or a BIM model that actually closely matches what the as-built conditions are. And of course, that can be very regular in a modern building. It can be, very vertical and everything. And for historic buildings, it may be very ornate, may be very complicated things. And of course, you have a choice of how closely will you model it? Is it just for context, just showing the neighboring buildings and how large they are and the basic styles, or is it something that's detailed because you're going to actually be doing construction related to it? So anyway, just wanted to give you a sense of, for some of you who are less familiar with what a point cloud is, it's a cloud of points that defines.
Yes, and Eric, if I can, there's another very important thing about point cloud is that, for example, as you get it from the scanning stations, you need a very, very powerful computer and a huge storage space to compute it, to resample it, and to connect it. And as, for example, as a final output for this Archicad or Revit file, though it's usually very light. So quite massive hardware is required to work appropriately with these files, and if your computer is not top of the line, so it can be extremely time consuming just to work with this data.
So the other key thing is that these surveys are very accurate in general, down to a very small fraction of an inch or millimeters accuracy. They can be very quick in the sense of just someone going on site and in minutes or hours scanning the context that otherwise would have taken a lot more time to do all the measurements. And then when you get it simplified down to, hey, here's a surface and here's a window and here's a parametric object, then you end up with something that's really like we're all familiar with. You can pull and push and remodel and delete walls. Now you have something that's workable. So, and you make it easy for people by taking the point clouds, which would be done by some local service wherever the building is, because you're not flying over there. But these services are now relatively economical. We're talking about a few $100s or a few $1,000s to do surveys in many cases. All right.
Yeah, but as you mentioned, the second stage, as it gets to engineers and architects, so usually depending on the purpose of that Archicad model, there are different demands and different systems how that models should be gathered together. So that is basically we talk with the client at what precision does he need that we resample that point cloud to the level of precision that he needs, and based on that we do after that modeling based on color, layer systems, templates that he uses. And after that, the second stage, as it gets to architects and engineers, they get to their directly the most valuable time spent on their direct working hours, like being engineers and architects and not working with BIMCloud.
Okay.
So, and also we do, for example, as this, we get this order, I think we got it from China, something like that. It was an old scanned, very complex, geometrically complex structure. I'm not so qualified how to call it, but we also did Archicad model, did renderings for them, and basically you can see these drawings that were made, and based on that we did also the modeling. So sometimes there is a need to have a model based on old blueprints for renovation or for historical reconstruction or for even maintaining building for building maintenance purposes. So we are doing models also for this type of things.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to interrupt one more time. Anyone have any questions? Please type them into the questions area and go to webinar, and I'll moderate. I'll bring them in as we go. So please feel free to type in any questions that you'd like clarification on. So do carry on.
Okay. Yeah. So also in Scandinavia, there is also a need to have as-built models, for example, boiler rooms and stuff like that. So we also, part of our work, we get BIMCloud scanned of that room, and based on that, and also based on the technical specification, we create that MEP model of those systems and attach it to critical information, or even sometimes links to Dropbox folders where the specification of all equipment is. And in that case, we provide and help boiler room builders to provide the final as-built model to the client, and that is also very like like solving a huge puzzle. And another lighter of our services is that we are producing renderings. For example, if we're talking about that daily renderings, we can produce them with Twinmotion, we can produce them with Lumion. And usually when the project gets to more finalized stages, it requires for marketing purposes or for final presentation for the client a bit higher quality of rendering. So we also provide renderings with 3D Max and Corona render. So basically also as people are working with our company, we can help them to expand their scope of software that they are using on a daily basis beneath Archicad and Twinmotion, and to compare results and to choose the end result that is most suitable for them. And also based on those models as a final stage, based on architectural lead architects, because in any way, I want to underline one main thing, that we are on these projects, we are not working as architects and we are not working as engineers. We are working as an additional part of their team who helps to convert their ideas and their proposals into these modern Archicad Revit BIM files. And this our architectural and constructional drawing set. Also, as we create model, and if there is a need to model it further, based on the red lines and on the sketches of details that we receive from architects, we can also develop annotated and finished drawings. And I'm very happy that we had and we're trusted by with Ian to work with someone on his projects.
Ian will be coming on in a little while. Actually, maybe Ian, since you are going to show this, Ian, do you want to just turn on your webcam and we can at least, say hello as part of this. So I know Ian is connected up. There you go. So
put a light on. Yes, I'm back. Yes, I've worked very successfully with Rufus and his team for a number of years, and And that worked exceptionally well. And he's brought up a project here that I was going to a little bit on and some pictures of later on. So yes, it's been a very, very good working relationship that we had over the years. And as Rufus has said, it's a team approach. His team there I saw them as my team as well. So as we were working on projects, you know, it wasn't a matter of outsourcing something to somebody else to draw, and there was little involvement. There was a dialogue backwards and forwards, just as there would be with any staff member working in your office. So just because the office is several thousand miles away, it made no difference whatsoever. We're still able to communicate exactly as we're communicating now with things and drawings. So that it worked exceptionally well.
And Ian, I want to point out that also that the huge distance was not obstacle to visit us also and to meet directly in Vilnius.
Yeah, we had a couple of visits over in Lithuania on business meetings to discuss work, and actually from you introduced me into using the VR a little bit more, and that worked very well. So the face-to-face meetings, I mean, for me it was very good because there was a local airport that we could get over to in a couple of hours. Now they've shut that airport, it's a little bit longer, but hey ho, Brexit has its problems.
Yeah. So all right, well, do carry on, Rufus, and Ian, feel free to contribute as part of this section.
Yes, and I want to also to say, as Ian said, so basically this is outsourcing is maybe just partly the correct word. We are just an expansion of a drafting room, and also we are adding to a drafting room additional functions. That, for example, we are helping to join a bit different modern system. So basically, as we worked with Ian, we received some starting information from his side, some photos, some sketches, measurements, 2D drawings, and as Ian pointed out, we worked as a team, as a expansion, and we helped him, he helped us. It was a mutual communication, and at first maybe there was some learning curve as in every partnership, but after that we managed to move a bit smoother. So basically we also received information about equipment that was done, that was used in this. We did some modeling of that equipment, and as work progressed we got some pictures, equipment drawings, and we also, based on that information, we created some plans, we created sections and schedules. Also we did that, and also we did this one of these projects at BIMX model, like and this model where you can go through all this quite heavy technical equipment and can see, and we are very happy that Ian has sent us picture of a finished project because this looks very nice.
By the way, it's very odd for me to see this room, this medical facility, because 1.5 years ago I had a heart attack, and they, rushed me to the catheter lab, which is this type of room. And even though, I was in California and this one undoubtedly is in Europe, UK, it looks very familiar to me because I was in it. And it's like, of course, I didn't see all of it because I was being wheeled in and wheeled out, but, I recognize some of the features. So. Anyway.
Yeah, it's quite grounding, really, when you do this type of work, that you know that people are going to be in here needing life-saving operations. And it's one of the things that actually pushed me towards the medical side, because there's a nice end result out of it. It's not about some client making loads of money or somebody wanting the nice house. This is about often, frontline medical care, that is needed, and there are several people that appreciate it as it goes. The end users, such as yourself, who's actually been in one of these labs, but also the staff, the nursing staff, the doctors and things appreciate what you're doing all the time with that. And the builders are a great team over here that have been working on. There's a lot of specialized builders. So Rufus and his team really helped with that. We got some good information. It was brilliant, really.
Okay.
Yes. So, and basically that is also we worked with some other projects, but the principle was the same. We received some information. We did some modeling, some drafting, some communication, some meetings, and of course we worked with under strict supervision of Ian. We received red lines, notes, and we just gathered all information in one thing. Also, we gathered information from interior designers, and based on that. And we did also modeling of some equipment. So based on that, this was our like work in progress. And yes, this is also like we produced the BIMX file where they are all the drawings, and we had the whole list. I believe we had 11 or something projects. We tried to calculate.
Back up just one step there. If you, this one, yeah. So those I guess rounded forms there. Those are radiation levels.
They are Gauss lines. These are MRI scanners, so they don't emit radiation as such. They emit sort of electronic frequency, magnetic frequency that can affect things around outside. So the red line there is what's called a 5 Gauss line. So if you've got a pacemaker fitted, you really don't want to go anywhere near that because it will stop it. And the other little perimeter line that goes on the outside is something like a 1 Gauss line, which can affect computers. And it's very much like you used to get on the old television monitor computers, where you used to have a Gauss button on the back and press it to de-gauss your screen years ago. Well, the same thing can happen with these. Different. So in these scanners, you have to protect them against radio and magnetic interference that's coming in, and also shield the public against the magnetic interference that's coming out. Whereas if you're putting a CT scanner in or a nuclear scanner, then you're trying to stop the radiation coming out and affecting anybody else. So different sort of thing. But this project, just as an aside here, working with Team4BIM, this was an interesting one because in terms of working with drawings, and it makes you realize how you cannot rely on information. I know you've talked all about the point cloud things, so, but I'm always a firm believer in double checking things. This job here was drawn originally by there were a pair of Siemens scanners going in here, 1.5 Tesla scanners, and it was drawn originally, sketched up by Siemens as to their scanners fitting in. When I went to site, it was based on as-built drawings that were actually in CAD format for the project. When I went to site, the building was actually 4 foot narrower than it shows. Not in the width whereas across it, but if you look at that drawing in the sort of north-south direction. So that made a heck of a difference to getting the scanners in, and that was highlighted. That was from the information I got, that was highlighted straight away by Rufus's team, saying there's something amiss here. So we double checked dimensions, and then that went through a process of redesigning this, redoing the sketch schemes out for them, and having to shrink it to fit. So the working with Team4BIM worked in the same way as you would work with another member of staff sat at the side of you in the office, that you're working through it all the time. So that it was that sort of relationship. So it was that was an interesting little job, that one.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for sharing that extra detail there. So Rufus, it looks like you're almost at the end of that slideshow thing.
I'm totally at the end.
Okay.
So just So this is just my final slide. So during that presentation, I tried to show in brief what scope of work we can be trusted with, and I hope that that you found it interesting.
Oh, definitely, definitely. So the way I've set up this presentation today, or the structure for the session, is that, you know, this is a general introduction. We're going to be meeting, you know, 5 different clients of yours and talking about it. So Ian, I think you've already shared so much. Is there anything else that you didn't cover or that didn't come up here that you were going to show when we're going to look at your screen?
There was a few more things, and I think I was going to just go over a little of the way that I would present information through to Team4BIM as well, and also some of the BIMX use as well. I'm not going to go over the old ground of what you know we've done with there, other than to say that, you know, just to reinforce the fact that it's a team approach of working. It's, as you say, it's like an extension of your office. I found myself a few years ago with having staff in the office, but we'd got a workload that we needed an extra pair of hands, exactly as you'd said earlier on. But that extra pair of hands was getting difficult to locate in our country, and also difficult to locate on a flexible basis, because the nature of the work is 1 week you're pulled out, the next month you're a little bit light on work. So I'd had to balance and make, you know, commitments on whether you take somebody on full time, whether it's part time, what their commitment is, and I decided to try this route. And it worked exceptionally well, I must say, and Rufus knows that. You know, it's been a good relationship with 2 or 3 of Rufus's team over the years, and more pulled in if I needed it on a larger project. So I think that was very good. If you just want, I can actually just share the screen a little bit more if you like.
Okay, well, let's see if we can. Since we have a bunch of people to cover, let's just try to keep yours to 3 to 5 minutes, since we've already looked at some of your materials. And then one thing I want to do is get Marius. You haven't had a chance to talk. I wanted to be able to talk with you. And then we'll go to Patrick Mickelhenny, who was your first client back, you know, when you started to do the outsourcing. So let's just do it.
I have told you that our print screen of our first invoice, it was 0001, and it was issued to Patrick.
Yeah. So we'll have Patrick on in about, you know, maybe 10 minutes. So let's go to Ian. I'm going to make you presenter. So let's just try to keep it really brief. Just show us a few things that we haven't seen that you had prepared for today.
So how do I'm just looking at how I share.
Made you presenter, so you can choose which screen if you have more than one, and then say share your screen. And by the way, again, I'll say thank you all for who are attending. We have over 90 people in the room right now. If you have any questions for panelists or for, you know, Rufus or Marius or myself, please type them into the GoToWebinar questions area. Or feedback, like, hey, if you thought that was pretty interesting, love to get that type of feedback.
Right, I can't on here, unfortunately, so because of my system settings, I can't share the screen unless I close all this down and start again. So I'll not share it any further than that.
You go ahead and close all of it down and come back in, giving permission. Let's talk to Marius then, okay?
Okay, that's fine, yeah.
So Marius, do you have anything you want to share from your screen? Because I can make you presenter.
Well, Rufus actually explained and described basically all of the service we provide. So from my side,
do you have anything you want to share on screen? Should I make you presenter?
Unless we can entertain our viewers of one of the
let me make you presenter, and you can show whatever you have. And Ian, you just come back in when you can.
Yeah, okay.
Just a short view, and I need to find how to share that.
Okay, well, we're seeing your desktop right now, you know, with the sort of sci-fi looking scene.
Can
Now
you
we're
see
seeing,
that?
now we're seeing that ornate sort of looks like a Japanese type of pagoda, at least from
Yes,
my.
exactly, exactly. So this is just for at the beginning or until Ian comes back. Just a short story, maybe a little bit of showing off. This was made maybe 2 years ago from a hand-drawn drawing, and we were asked to do it as accurate and as detailed as possible. So we went with that, and it came up pretty well with it. So you can see all of these details. This is one of the most pleasure giving works, working on the details, and the sometimes like not like all professional drawings are needed to work and make results client would be satisfied with. So for this,
Yeah, this looks like a fun project to work on. Did you have anything else you wanted to show, Marius?
no. Basically, what we have to show, like the common description of what we can provide, was in August presentation. So if there will be a chance, I will catch up on any questions if there will.
Okay. So your role, Marius, then is you oversee the project delivery for clients for all of the outsourcing, the Team4BIM. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. And so there are a couple of questions. So when Ian comes back on, we'll put have him connect up. See, he might. I have to see. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've cracked this actually, so I don't think it's going to work. Not
All
that
right, let me
quickly.
just see if I make you a presenter. If it does seem to. So Ian, let's see if you have the option to share your screen.
Oh yeah, show my screen. Is my screen on now?
Not yet. You have to probably confirm it, like go ahead and choose which screen.
Yeah, I've clicked the button on the screen sharing, and I've said share my screen. Start. Nothing happening yet, I'm afraid. Start or pause. So start. So I've got the start button on there. Is anything sharing on there? Can you see my screen?
Okay. Well, if it doesn't work, then we've certainly learned about your work with them. So it's anything you want to say verbally, just like related to it.
Yeah, I think we'll drop that screen sharing. Yeah, what I was going to come back onto the fact of the information that was sent through. Rocco showed some pictures there of my scribble surveys that I do, which has been hand surveys. Some are legible, some are not, and sometimes we have to go backwards and forwards on it to get that right. But what I have found was very good and very quick was because of the quick turnaround from Team4BIM. Then if I'd been to site, I would use an iPad quite a lot. Take a photograph of existing drawings, or even a photograph of equipment on the walls, things like that, and I would annotate up that photograph, save that image, and then bounce that across to the team so that they could use that and start working up the drawings. As he's mentioned before, the red line markups is a big thing that you need to get used to when you're working with somebody remotely. It's difficult sometimes to just explain what you want. So I tended to do that on Adobe's, on PDFs, and I would mark up various PDFs that were sent back to me. It was better and easier than actually trying to adjust the CAD drawings onto there. Mark up the PDFs so that there's a digital trail, if you like, of information, and a recorded a trail of the information that I've sent across that I want my draft person to actually come back to me with. They can work through those better than just a set of points on an email, and better than just adjusting something on a drawing and asking them to make the drawing better at the end of the day. because I think with it, what it creates on the PDF is a paper trail of changes that whoever's working on it with you can actually work through. So that worked very, very well. And just to come back on what you were saying with the BIMX and some of the BIM models, what I found on the commercial side of things was different to residential. On some of the house alterations that we've done, the residential clients would be happy looking at a VR of it, walking through their house, walking through the kitchens, walking through the outside areas, and space planning as I would meet with them. Whereas in a commercial world, that wasn't always the case. Meetings are very short. People haven't got the time, and commercial project managers are not that bothered about putting on a pair of VR goggles to walk around the building. So that's where the BIMX came in great, because I would take the iPad to site, even plug that in if we've got a meeting display in a large room, and I can call up all the drawings that I need. I can call up the BIMX model. I can rotate that model around so that the client can see exactly what the room's like. And in those rooms, like you saw with the MR scanners, we can fly down into that model, look through the control room window and show the operators exactly what they're going to see through that window. It doesn't have to be finished. It doesn't have to be in a perfect colored, almost photo representation image, because we all know in the real world, it doesn't always come out like that. So I think sometimes, you know, you give clients these photorealistic images, and then when it doesn't turn out like that, then there's a question raised. Sometimes I've found it better to give them almost the diagrammatic or the sketch representation, and then leave more to their imagination. When it's opened up and it's fine, then they're more than pleased with that usually. Right. So that was really what I wanted to try and get across with that.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, Ian. So if it's okay, we'll move on to Patrick. Is that all right? So I'm going to ask Patrick to come to the stage. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. You were the first outsourced client for Rufus and his team back in 2009, it looked like, and you used them for many years, up at least through to 2016, I think you said.
It's actually 2020. 2020 was our last project together.
Okay, so over 10 years. And tell us just a little bit about your firm and what type of work you do.
So we typically do work like what you're seeing here. Most of the work that we have done over the last 20 years has been work that is with existing buildings. Very few are coming out of the ground in this area in Southern California. So what you're looking at actually these are all photos, or well, they're concepts that were done by Rufus's team, and he's done such a wonderful job. Actually, most of everything that you see in there, except for the bodies, are pretty much very close to what you see in these pictures in the real thing now. Mm-hmm. So it just it gave us a very good comfort level with Rufus's team, because he was able to have people that worked for him that were very fast and very thorough. And so I have all kinds of accolades when it comes to Rufus.
Now, these are all commercial projects. I know you mentioned that you do a lot of medical and science facilities. Is that right?
That is correct. So these are all training rooms that are being utilized. This happens to be in one building. It's about a 180,000 square feet. Oh, by the way, this I thought that this was very unique for the owner. This was a typical restroom in a cluster of restrooms that is found right next to a second floor facility that included a working out gym. And so what I thought was very interesting is I explained to the owners, well, you know, we do have to have a curb-free shower, and so he says, no, we'll make them all curb-free. So he just likes to have everything smooth and clean. So unfortunately, you can't see that here, but this again was a concept that was done. And it almost is identical to what is there today.
What's your privacy screening in there, or is it the one-person use?
That's actually, you see the door. That's the privacy screening. You see it in the mirror.
Okay, so basically, this room is only for the one person. It's not like
one person that's going to be getting get that sweat off of them, you know, from the.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's the last
here one. Here you are in the upper right.
Right.
Okay. So we don't have you on webcam, but there you are.
Yeah, that would be me. And do you notice anything that you would recognize there with Rufus's company?
So on the T-shirts, you've got his architectural company logo. So
that's right. So our team was surprised by getting, this was 2014 were these photos here, and when the project was done, we got a package for everybody on the team with Rufus's company on it. So we were all thrilled about that. And but I have to say this, that oh, wait a second. There's one other thing I think that is important. Here's a lessons learned that 'cause I think you may have people from around the world on this interview or on this point. But here's something that's worthy of commenting, and I wanted to share that with you and your group here today. When it comes to paying over borders and especially overseas, we found it very beneficial to go through PayPal. We did not use the banks. We tried using the banks one time, and I about went flipped because I was paying the bank the same amount as what we were paying Rufus at our very first project. And so I found out that not all countries use PayPal. And very few small businesses have ever heard of PayPal. But the point is that there are no outrageous fees. And especially in Lithuania, we had no bank wire fees to pay, no bank fees to pay, and it did take some processing. We gave a hand there to Rufus because he had to go and meet with PayPal people, and then we helped him prepare the applications for it. And within a short couple of days, he was able to get on board with PayPal, and so we could pay him instantly without any wire transfers or anything like that, at no cost to us, no cost to them, and all within using PayPal. So I would highly recommend it for.
Well, good to know that. I think that the options have expanded over the last few years. I actually one of the consultants that I work with is based in Italy, but he's moving around. He's going to be moving to the Canary Islands, and he set up a US dollar account literally in Lithuania, I believe, through a service called revolut.com. So revolut.com. And so we just did a transfer similar to what you're talking about. And he's able to maintain a US dollar account, even though he's in Italy and this is in, of course, it's all EU. So there are.
It's worth a little shopping, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's good for everybody.
So what I want to do, Patrick, is bring Rufus and Marius back on in terms of the webcam, because I want to just ask a little bit about the learning curve with learning the standards, U.S. standards, and how they deal with that in general, company standards. And then also there's a question, Jacek asked about pricing. and Revit, whether they serve Revit-based offices. So I see that Rufus, you're over at Marius's computer.
We had some technical issues. One of our web cameras somehow broke down, so now we'll be.
Okay, well, this will. So, first question we'll just do, right now is how do you deal with different office standards? I mean, I know you're dealing with US, UK, and Australia, and probably some other miscellaneous ones like Canada and things. But how do you deal with national standards, and how do you deal with people's templates, like that they say I prefer working with this template?
Well, usually we just try to get as much information as possible. So, for example, if there is a question of a template of any standards, we are asking for, let's say, some samples, so we can see what client is usually producing, and we get an idea of what is needed to be provided.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, as with the templates, even if there are different places on the world, there is a similar system or what clients are wanting to achieve, etc. So, for example, the main difference with the national and US templates is that with the European templates, sometimes we get the layers and objects interface in a language we don't know anything about. But with the Archicad knowledge, we can more or less know where to find any features. And with the international templates and, let's say, layers, etc., usually what makes it work easier for us that there is a simple system that allows you know what you're doing, what you're working with, without actually see the translation. So with the layers, the numbers help, so we can adjust very quickly and just remember all usable layers and what needed to be done with the different requirements. Well, of course, there is a learning curve all the time, but when we occur, when we run into like several clients with several scopes of work, which if it goes to a complicated side, there are a lot of common things there.
Okay.
So with experience, it goes easier and faster, and the learning curve, we just pass it pretty quickly.
Okay, so I understand that you're comfortable working with the client system, whatever the layer structure is, whatever the template is, and you do have, of course, if it's in English, then that's something you use a lot. But if it's in other languages other than Lithuanian or English, then you have other ways to work around that and just understand the common language of there are layers, and these are the ones we use for these things. Now, I guess this brings up a little bit the Revit versus Archicad or whatever. And so, Rufus, you want to slide in there and just so I understand that for a variety of reasons, you started to provide services in Revit to be able to help more users, as well as sort of broaden out from the Archicad brand. But you said to me this week that about 90% of your projects are in Archicad?
Yes, mainly because I can see Archicad is from the most humble side. You can say that Archicad has the same functionality and the same approach as Revit, but it is just, if you go to the pricing policy, it is cheaper than Revit, and also from our point of view, it gives a bit better. It is a bit better software, more stable and more user-friendly solution. We had also decision in our office when we were choosing which of our Lithuanian project with software to use at the starting point, Revit or Archicad. We did even such, for example, two people are trying to create a project of a small living house, and how long does it take to do it with Revit, and how long does it take it to do it with Archicad. So Revit has a lot of pop-ups and setting up everything. So it takes usually, where if you are working on a small scale project, about twice as time to get the same type of a building.
Okay.
So
So you've gotten familiar with both, and you prefer Archicad in general because it's more user-friendly and it's just faster to get work done. But in answer to Jacek, your question, they do provide services to Revit for Revit-based projects. And is that sort of in general like architectural or engineering? I mean, are you pretty much versatile?
now we are providing in Revit services for some manufacturing companies to whom we are producing wood frame and engineering models for manufacturing purposes. I'm very sorry, but I cannot get into the deeper details because usually some part of our clients want to get NDA from our side to have their own private space. So, but yes, we can develop also projects with Revit at quite high detail level.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, Jacek, you also asked a question, which I think many, if not all of you who are on the call will want to know is how do you price your services, Rufus? And we were having some discussion about you are used to doing things on an hourly basis. You also will do a fixed price for a scope of work if that's preferred. But you're very economical because your Lithuanian, I guess, salary scale is lower than in many other EU countries. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, as it gets to pricing, there are two main things what needs to be taken into consideration about our company. This approach is that, for example, when a company wants to start working with us, we don't have any upfront payment, down payment, or anything that kind. We get assignment, we start to work with the assignment. After 1 week of working, we send out work progress, and we send out invoice with that work progress. If our client is happy with the result, he makes payment, and we just resume working next week of the project. And if there's some questions, so that the cooperation stops. So that is one approach that, for example, it is quite safe. If you want to test our company to see how we work, it is quite safe to do that. And there are two main pricing principles. First one is that, and usually we start to work with companies on a fixed project prices. For example, if there is a project, we provide a price and we fit into that price. Mm-hmm. And on the second stage, when we get on working in daily basis and trust is gained from the client, and if it is an open-end project, which sometimes happens to architectural companies, and we get on a daily basis just different changes, and usually the architect itself doesn't know what will be needed to be done next day. So we work just on an hourly rate. And our pricing policy is based on two. It is hourly, hours spent on the work, and our hourly rate.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you've quoted here your current rate, 22 euro per hour. So obviously very economical compared to, well, any developed country. I mean, maybe it's different in India or something like that, but anything like US, UK, Australia, this would be very...
I want to point out a very important thing, that we are now setting out our company, looking how to set it up. But for example, for this and in a couple months, actually the people that are contacting our company is getting 20 euro per hour quote. At this rate we are calculating and we are doing, and this is just basically our vision, but our current rate that we are working with is 20.
Okay. I think this is a very attractive position where you, you've got an hourly thing, and you even, will get started and do the first week of work, waiting for approval. You won't do a second week of work without it, but you'll actually, if you feel a client is suitable, it's going to be a likely good match. You can just get started without even sending them any money, which I think is more than generous. Now, in terms of how many clients you've worked with, and I know we're going to go to some of the other clients in just a minute, you've worked with over 300, you said 360 clients so far?
Yes, on bigger and smaller scale projects, we worked about 360 projects, and those companies that we are working on a constant basis for many years, we have listed about 30 companies.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let me just see if there are other questions that have come in here. All right. When exchanging Archicad files with Team4BIM, this is Dave Norman asking, how do you coordinate different layer schemes, building materials, etc.? Okay, so what we want to address that?
Yeah, so it depends how we are sharing the files. So usually if there is a teamwork, even if we used to host the server, if it's done by the client, all of the data links to the file will be included through the server. If we're sharing the files offline out of the teamwork with the PDA or PDN files, depends on the size and what is more comfortable for the client. Usually we're asking for client's library if he has any specific ones. So even in Europe, in international companies, they have a specific country-based library, which usually might have even the same textures or objects, but with a different name, like language specific. So it's if we're using different library, it might not be visible for our client. So in such cases, we're asking a client to share the libraries, and if it's possible, we're using that and adapting to the client's needs.
Okay, so I'm just going to give the 30-second summary. Basically, whatever you're used to using as an Archicad user, they can work with, and they will just get your template, your library, etc. if they don't already have that library or those resources. Now, one thing that I'm just going to get clear, because I know we're running longer on these parts, and I want to get to the other clients. I've heard from your clients, Rufus and Marius, that sometimes they prefer just having you do work and send it via Dropbox, so that they, the work is done overnight, sort of thing, and then they open it up and they're working. And other times, other clients prefer the teamwork approach, and that you do support that both with your own in-house BIM server, or what is it now called, BIMCloud, as well as the Graphisoft service, which you can pay a certain amount per month to have seats on their cloud server, or if you have an in-house BIMCloud server that you make accessible from outside, then they'll work with that. So basically very flexible. Pete Wilson asked, do you use Apple computers or PCs?
We use PCs.
And Eric, returning to last question about compatibility. So we also use and Archicad has two versions. One is the international Archicad full commission, and another is US. So basically, our licenses, Archicad licenses, allows to use also international Archicad and US version of Archicad. Mm-hmm. And some of our clients also use all the versions of Archicad, because not all of them are up to date and also using the newest software. So basically, we are also capable of using basically all the Archicad version if a client is using them to have a better compatibility with them.
Okay. So there's a question from Stan saying contact info. So I'm going to put down and reply so everyone can see it. Rufus Mazaronis at team4BIM@gmail.com.
No, team4BIM@gmail.com. Yes.
Yeah, team4BIM@gmail.com. That's what I.
It's our general email, and we will answer to any email within 4 hours. So if he will contact us,
Okay.
so we will send information.
All right. So I want to move on because we have 3 more guests who have come on, and I had promised that they would be on, a little earlier than this, but this has been had a natural flow. And I want to thank Patrick for joining us. I don't know if you're still on, but I know Patrick said he wouldn't be able to stay on till.
I want to thank Patrick as well. It was very nice hearing from him again.
Okay, yeah. So let's see. Next up on my list, I want to say thank you, Tim, for showing up in particular, because Tim has been so helpful with working with me over the years, sharing some advanced Archicad techniques and workflow. Tim, you love working with the model, so you told me that what you mainly do is have Team4BIM build in, the as-built existing conditions, and then from there you just want to manipulate it because you're designing in 3D all the time. In other words, it would be foolish to redline it and tell them to do it because you'd rather just get it done, right? All right, so Tim, you've been working at Archicad a very long time, and we've had a lot of back and forth, and you've shared a lot of your knowledge through Archicad User and through the Masters of Archicad program. What do you got here? How do you work with Team4BIM?
So just to give you a little bit of background, I work a lot on historic buildings, and it's very important to get really accurate surveys. So what I'd get is stuff like this. So this is a 2D survey that I hire somebody to go and do for me. I personally hate doing surveys, so I'm very happy to let somebody else do it. So they give me things like floor plans, nice and detailed, plenty of things like ceiling heights, beam heights, stuff like that. And as well as that, they give me elevations. So that's gives you an idea of what actually they do.
Now that was then the elevation. We could see just a part of one wall that was on a skewed angle. That was interesting. And then I saw on the plan it actually was skewed by that amount.
Yeah,
of course, historically things might not be square.
No, exactly. Actually, I was going to show you another project. It's closed it. Okay, don't worry. So it gives you an idea. So really what I'm sending to the BIM guys is that I've then got a project here that I've pulled out of an archive because I've actually got pictures of the finished building. So they would actually give me back they would take that 2D survey and they'd create an Archicad model from it. This is a floor plan. They'd also be giving me, an as existing elevation. And what I then do is, using the renovation filter, I basically create my own floor plan where I'm adding. We basically put a whole load of stuff in here. And I also then create, obviously, the proposed. This is actually where there's a very, very minimalist infill.
Can you just go back between existing and proposed in this view, just so we see the difference? Or you can just double click on your view. Okay, so now, because when you went back to plan, we couldn't really, get it. Yeah, okay.
And the reason I spend so much time modeling these things is because when you're actually trying to explain, to get consent to do something like this, you have to really explain in huge detail how it works and how it actually fits with the existing building. And this one, for instance, there is here, that's a cutaway section that shows the way that I approached the design of this particular building, because the most important part of the existing building was actually this element here. And so I was able to model it and create a glass roof there with a flat roof here. And that way, when you're inside the building, you can actually look up and you can see the old historic element there. And the planning officer loved that. They turned down everything else we tried to do here, and they loved that and said, there, you can have the consent for that. And I think here, I found, where's it gone? And that's actually there. That's what it looked like when it's finished. So that gives you an idea there of what they've got done. And if I open, I think I've got another. Okay. I just open another one that they've just been working on, just to give you another example. This is another one they've worked on for me recently, which is a little bit more complicated. What we start with is something pretty simple. You know, it's a floor plan. The color coding is because these elements are more recent than the original grey ones. So and some of this.
What are the little symbols that look like a Parthenon?
Ah, you know what I'm like with data. That's that's another half an hour to talk about that, Eric. These
right, so that's a 2D symbol that you put some data into for the schedule.
Yeah, so I'll show you that in a minute. So basically, you've got as existing plans, you've got and existing elevation. I don't know why it takes so long to regen this one. This is in 25. It should be all right. So you get that. You can then say, this is the part that I'm actually going to work on, because what we've got is this sort of here, this horrible 1980s conservatory that people put on their buildings in the UK, so Rufus and his team modelled all of this for me. So this is a pretty complicated building, as you can see. And they're really good at actually looking and getting all of these details right. I help them out a bit sometimes with getting the finer detail of the materials and just little things to do with, you know, little external walls and things like that. But what then allows me to do is to actually demolish that, and instead we get that. So, you know, this bit all over here is all still the same. I've used the renovation tool to do something. There's something missing here, which I won't bother to go in with now. That again allows you to do, you know, the comparisons of what you can do. But it's great because they save me an awful lot of time by just actually, I can rely on them to make sure all of that works. One of the things that I do, there we go, I think we can do it here, is we can use the trace, because what they generally do is put down here, I've got it, yeah, here we go. What they've done here, Eric, is that one, I think it is. So they've taken the survey drawing I gave them, and they've put it into a worksheet. And what that then means we can do, to check what they've done, we can trace reference that into it, like that. Actually, I'm not sure that is the right one. Yeah. So there you can see that they've taken, I mean, that's the way they work. They've taken the 2D DWG file, and you can check the whole thing very easily, and they do that as well. So I kind of, I look at this all the time, but I've never found that they've missed something or anything like that. But it's actually a really neat way of using the trace reference tool to actually check whether the elevation is correct or not.
Right. Tim, we're running late here, so I'll give you a couple more minutes if there's some other things primarily focused on your work with them. It seems like you rely on them to accurately create the as-built so you can focus on the new design.
That's right. And I'm unlike a lot of the other architects who talk to you tonight, I don't use pencil and paper anymore. I just design straight into Archicad, and I've been using Archicad for so long. I started, I think, on one of the versions 4. I can't remember which one it was, but I can draw as fast as an Archicad pretty much as I can do it with pencil, because I'm just doing it so quickly. You asked earlier about those heritage note. There's a thing there to do with heritage notes, and I think that they're on. Where are they on? There we go. So when I'm presenting this to to get approval to it, I'm basically creating a sheet like this, where I've got as existing on the left, proposed on the right. But what I've also got is a schedule here. So this schedule is actually pulled from those. Those are actually just they're 2D objects. I've got a 3D version as well, which I use in BIMX. So that's pretty cool, because you can have a kind of like a kind of avatar floating in the middle of the room, and if you click it, then the info gives you
just if you can
details about it.
Just to make it clear for people, go to that schedule, open the source of the schedule. Just follow my directions, Tim. I think you'll know where I'm going. So now click on any one of those that you think would have an avatar, and then say open the source view. Open the source element. All right. So normally, when you select something in a schedule, it'll show you the window, the door, or the piece of equipment that is that is in the schedule. This actually is a 2D object that has some fields. So just open up the actual dialog.
You go in there, and what I've actually got is a property with I've got a main property called heritage, and I've got sub properties for note, heritage value, proposed change, justification for change. It's just properties, I've been using properties for years.
Schedule, you show what that is showing on the schedule. So there you can see the note that we were just seeing in, on that element is what's showing up in the schedule. So this is something we've spent some time, you've shown it in some other Archicad user things. It's quite clever, because we're so used to putting notes in schedules for windows, doors, or equipment, but this is actually doing a specification information using 2D elements in some cases to just get it into the schedule.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, whichever's easier. But what it means is that you also can then pull the whole thing together. Everything is in Archicad. So, you're able to say, yes, the house plan's there. everything you need is in there. And of course, you can repeat the same idea with the elevations as well.
Okay,
But
so
that's-
we're going to need to move on. Tim, I want to thank you for jumping on and staying up late, because I know it's getting to be almost 11 o'clock at night for you.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right.
Well, nice to see you guys again.
Yeah, you can stay on the line, but I just want to bring up Chris Bellinger
Yeah, sure.
here. So Chris, want to put on your webcam and let me make you.
Tim, I just also want to thank you for your review. It was very interesting hearing from you, and I'm very thankful that you are continue to work with us.
That's all right, guys. You do a great job, so you deserve it.
Thank you. Thank you. Very nice to hear.
All right. So, so Chris, welcome. So you're based in the Santa Barbara, California area, and you do residential work. Tell us a little bit about your work and then how you've been using Team4BIM. I can't hear you. So let's, you need to, let's see if you are unmuted, but there you go.
Okay, there we go.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, how are you doing?
All right.
Good. Yeah, I'll give you a quick overview. I mean, kind of specifically how it relates to working with Team4BIM. As a background, I've been working with them for about 6 years, maybe even a little longer. At this point, I've always been small. My largest, I had myself and 3 employees in-house, and at that time, I also used them for additional help. In the last couple of years, it's been just me, and I've continued to use them off and on. You know, frankly, I'd like to use them more, and that really goes to, you know, maybe some of the tips and tricks of working with them well. And one thing I'd say right off the bat is that working remotely, at least for me, requires that same transition that probably a lot of people have gone through who've gone from solo practice to having employees, which is you've got to take time to prepare the materials to provide to whoever's doing that work. So in terms of how I set things up, specifically, I do this for all projects, but it's specifically important for working, in my case, with Rufus and everybody there, is I always use teamwork. I use it even for the projects that I'm just mostly doing on my own. But that means they have access to everything. They have access to the libraries, all the data, everything. It's always updated. For me personally, I hate trading files back and forth with Dropbox and opening a new file. And is something missing, or is there a link to an attached file that's not there? That kind of stuff makes me crazy. So this is really easy. And it also gives us the ability, and we've used this from time to time, to work on the file at the same time. So although fortunately our time zones don't mostly overlap, which is nice, as Brian was saying, you know, work gets done overnight and it's there in the morning. That's fantastic. But sometimes, particularly busy times, they've been on and I've been on, and we're just, you know, reserving and releasing what we need to work together. So in terms of template and all that, you know, I have it set up. I usually will start a project with a few of the elements placed so that it's kind of blocked out. I might place a couple of walls, set up the floor levels just so they don't have to kind of do that on their own, and I have to go through the process anyway of thinking about it. This on the screen is a project that they helped me with right from the start. They created the mesh. I did exactly what I was talking about. I threw a few walls in. Actually, I think I did the perimeter walls on this and then gave them a sketch along these lines with some dimensions added in. So these would go to them, and then I had them block out the interior walls, and we keep iterating from there. You know, at this point, you know, we're working on various pieces at different times. So just the other day, I found these models of some light fixtures the clients are thinking about using. They weren't in an Archicad format, so I got them, sent them off, and they manipulated them. They were able to convert them, and then I brought them into Archicad this morning myself to kind of place and tweak. Like Tim, I design in 3D. I do some paper sketches at the very beginning and occasionally working out a little layout, but a lot of design is in 3D, so I do tend to rely on them for things that can be described easily or don't require as much design as you work. So moving to another file, here's a markup modifying some things. I would send something like that to them. I'll take a 3D view that I have, and I had already drawn this paneling in some other rooms, so all the detail was there. And then this just gives them an idea of where we're trying to go with it. Details, marking up, drawing details. And most recently on the project we were just looking at, there's electrical plan. So I'll mark this up, give them a few key elements of it, and let them go to work. That is this project, as I said, that we're just looking at.
Mhm.
So, you know, the things that I found is giving really clear, I think Brian mentioned this too, you know, giving really clear inputs on my end for them gets the best results. I mean, kind of a funny example just happened the other day. I sent some general instructions that we need to update all the outlets on this project. And the next day I came back and they said, it's great, we finished almost all of the guest house. And I didn't realize that I hadn't told them, because they haven't worked on the project in a little while, that I'm focusing on the main house now. So the work they did was great. That was really on me to make sure that you know, that I, as a person, and probably most of the people, you know, listening here are the clients, we have that broad range of knowledge. We know the project, we know the priorities, we know all this stuff that we probably don't even think about. And I found that it's important for me to take the time to understand what of that knowledge needs to get conveyed to them so that they can do what I'm expecting. And the more time I put into that up front, the more efficient the whole process goes. Not that it takes a lot of time, it's not daunting, but you do need to set aside some time to do it, you know, correctly. So that's my quick run through. I'm keeping.
Now you work with them all the time these days, right?
I haven't for a little while, but I have consistently for 6 years. The last few months it's been pretty quiet, which actually came down to me. I needed to take the time to get together what it is I wanted them to jump in and work on for me. I've certainly needed their help. I think that's a trap that maybe a lot of solo people get into. They're so busy doing the work, they don't stop to take time to make it possible for others to help them out. And every time I stop and take that time, it's well worth it.
Right. Okay. Excellent. So Rufus and Marius want to come back on, and actually Tim, if you want to come back on, because there's a question that was asked. And
if I can use this opportunity, I would like to thank Chris for sharing his experience and for working, because it's the first time we are talking face to face. So I'm really thankful for this, your feedback, and I hope that we will be working for many years ahead still.
I'm sure we will.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think Chris, you might have mentioned, it was either you or Brian said, I've never talked to them. I've just always typed messages through Skype or email or you know, directly inside the project file, which is interesting. You know, that, hey, you're seeing all the rich detail in the model and you're communicating through visual means, but you don't actually necessarily have to be on the phone or in a Zoom or other type of meeting. So.
Right. Yeah, that was me. This is the first time I've seen Rufus face to face. I've never had a Skype, never had a phone call with anybody there. It's all been emails and sketches, and it's worked really well. But I got to say, listening to Brian, I think I need to start doing some videos and might even consider a Skype call. That sounds pretty useful.
Well, Chris, from our experience, we can say that those people who are communicating directly and talking with Skype, spending even 5 or 10 minutes, because short conversation can save a long email.
Yes, yeah, that's just what I was thinking, listening to all this. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. So, so Tim, there was a question from Rob Hancock saying, how long does it take to model the existing building in the example that you had?
I say that rather than saying how long it takes, I can tell you how much I pay. And most of my jobs are around 300 or 400 euros. sometimes a bit more, but most of the jobs I do are around that cost.
You send them some materials with the survey, and for 300 or 400 euros, you get
I get an existing building.
Yeah.
And of course they've been working with me for a long time. We've got a template. They know how I like it done, and if they don't get it right, then they put it right straight away. They're great. I very occasionally they misunderstand something, but mainly, I mean, it's interesting you mentioned about the fact that it is visual communication, but then that's what we're doing, isn't it? That's what architects do. It's all visual, and visual, of course, is completely, overcomes language barriers.
Right.
Yeah.
So Rob has a comment that he's from the UK as well, and this is the type of work that he gets involved with. So he says, "Wow, 400 pounds, I'm sold." So
yeah, I tell you, they're great. They really are. And it's very interesting that there's also a sort of going rate in the UK for getting the surveys done. And most of the surveys I get done are between about £900 and about £1,200 to do a fully detailed survey. But of course, for that, you've got people who are spending probably a couple of days on site, going around and measuring everything.
mm-hmm.
And I've never enjoyed that aspect of architecture, so I actually, I just outsource that as well. So I've got my team, if you like. I've got the guys who go and do the survey in the UK, and I then take that information and I give it to Rufus and his team. And then when I've got that back, and I also do quite a lot of work that Rufus's guys aren't aware of, to the model when I get it back, because I have to make sure all the data side of it is correct, and make sure I understand the way all the renovation filtering stuff works. And then I can actually get on and start designing.
Mm-hmm. So there's a question from Tom Markunis: is the cost of an Archicad license in Lithuania the same as in the US? Good question. I know I used to sell Archicad. Many of you know that, or were my clients when I was doing that. And I know prices have gone up over the years, but I mean, it's roughly in the $5,000 to $6,000 range, I think, now per a license. Rufus, do you know what, if you had to buy another license for your firm, what it would be?
Yes, I can say that pricing policy, I'm not sure, but differs very much in US and in EU. And usually Revit and Archicad is more expensive in EU than it is cheaper in US.
So
by about 20% or something like that, last time I checked.
I'm sorry, so you're saying Revit is more expensive in the EU than in the US?
Yeah, I'm saying that both of these programs, they use the same pricing structure, that it is cheaper in US than in European Union.
They use the same pricing structure?
I mean, the principle that it is cheaper to buy Archicad in US than in European Union. It is, those licenses are a bit more expensive in Lithuania than in US.
Okay, so it's not cheaper there. So
No.
The labor cost.
About 20% license costs more in Lithuania than in US.
All right, so interesting. So labor cost is lower, but Graphisoft, I mean, if I think about it just from a market perspective, Graphisoft is very well established, very well respected in Europe, and is more of a niche player, you know, having to compete in the US market. And so, you know, they're in a position to charge a higher thing in the Europe, because people will say, well, of course, I've got to get my Archicad license to do my work. Whereas here, maybe less so. All right. Rob says there's a company called peak.co.uk that do something similar, but I'm not sure it's as bespoke and as detailed. So I'm sure there are other companies that will do Archicad models. There are individuals that will do it. What we want to feature here is, of course, you know, the Team4BIM as an integrated, sophisticated, experienced, you know, extension of your in-house team. You know, I think that, you know, you've all seen over the course of the last couple hours examples of what they do, how they can do it, and how it fits into an operation. And I'm really delighted that we've been able to explore so many things, just in the last couple of hours. Tom says, my name is Lithuanian, Tom Markūnas. So, all right. So last comments, we're at the 2-hour mark. So Ian, you have anything else to contribute? You come back on.
Well, it's just been very interesting, really looking at the principle of how everybody works. And I think what comes across to me is, although we work in different disciplines, whether it's residential, whether it's in a large scale, whether it's historic, whether it's commercial, it's the same flow and the process that you go through with everything. There's an information that's got to be given, there's a learning curve, and Team4BIM have worked very well on that. And once that's got through, then they work very much as an office team with you on all sorts of projects. So no, it was nice to see that there's lots of similarities in the way things are done. And looking at the varying sketches and the way it's done, I've done the same thing myself. Sometimes it's more detailed drawing, sometimes it's a quick block and a sketch round onto it. But it's understood and it's communicated, and what you get back is has been shown on here. Very good.
Okay. So, Tim, any final comments?
I think the thing that really helps is all about getting the template right. And I know that you've been developing your own template for many, many years, and I've stolen plenty from yours, believe me. And I've stolen plenty from everybody else I see. So I think that actually spending time on your template and I've actually got it's a whole favorites thing is a completely other discussion. But I think spending time on that and just keeping re-embedding what you do. If you do something differently for a good reason, put it in your template every time. Don't put it off. Just do it. My template probably changes every few days. It's virtually live. It's like a good bread yeast.
Interesting. All right. Well, great words of wisdom. Chris, any last comments?
I just encourage, if there's people listening or thinking about it, to definitely give it a try, to know that it's taking the time to put together your inputs to get the best of it. And if you're like me and you're going to be very hands-on with the project to the degree where something they work on is essentially getting handed off to me in the day, maybe I've got a deadline that night and they did half of it that evening and now I'm going to finish it up during the day. I found teamwork to be just fantastic for that. So as long as everybody remembers to release what they reserved, everybody's happy. It works really well.
All right. Okay. All right. So Rufus and Marius, any closing comments?
I just want to, as a closing words, to thank all of you who took part and spent their valuable time during this meeting, and just to say that there are two sides of this issue. One is technical, and technical there are tools and that allows to work in such ways, and another is psychological, is to overcome your shyness, overcome out of your circle of comfort, and to try to start working in a bit different way. So I'm really glad that all of us have found a way to work together. And once again, thank you for your time.
Marius?
Our pleasure.
As for my side, I just want to thank all of you, and it's been a pleasure to work with you. And we are really enjoying your project, and most of the projects are really complex, interesting, and it's a challenge for every of us to do a good job and to to do a good job. Yeah, let's do that.
Well, I know that you all care a lot. That's what I've gotten from all of the clients that I've talked to, is that you know, you go the extra mile. You're very conscientious and you're very expert. So that's all important criteria in terms of when you're working with a team, a staff member in-house, or you know, outsourcing. So I hope you all of you who joined us today and who are watching this recording have found this useful. I think that, you know, taking the time to work on your business rather than only in your business will pay back, you know, manyfold. And in this case, taking the time to research, you know, options for outsourcing and getting things, you know, experimenting, testing it out, you know, this is, I would say, almost just a no-brainer, because the way that Rufus has set this up. So the rate for services is very economical, and they'll even do, you know, first little batch as a test without you having to put out some money. But I know that you guarantee satisfaction, and you know, obviously there has to be some clear understanding of what any of you want from them. But as long as you're clear on what you need, you know, they will do their best to deliver it. So thank you all for joining us. You know, it's my pleasure every month to bring what I can to the Archicad community, and today has been a very special opportunity. So thank you all.
Thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you all.
Yeah, so if you have any questions, you can, of course, for Team4BIM, you can send it to team4BIM@gmail.com. That's TEAM, the number 4 and BIM @gmail.com. And of course, I'm available at support@bobrow.com if you have any questions, either about this or anything else Archicad related. So.
Yes, and from our side, we can arrange this meeting with anyone who wants to work with us or who is working with us already. So just let us know if you find it useful, and we will be able to contact you.
Right, okay. Now, by the way, Rick says, can they handle all the new work that they're going to get? Rufus?
We will see how it goes. We will try to do this.
Yeah, well, they've dealt with 367 clients or something like that to this point. I think they have a system, and so you can expand if you need to. And you do have that a whole other side. You can stop doing architecture and just do services, right?
Yes, we have such capabilities and possibilities. But usually we manage to get through challenges that we already dealt with a lot in our company's development. So I think we will try to do our best to meet the demands of the clients.
Okay. Well, I see a couple other thanks. So we'll let everybody go and enjoy your rest of your day or evening, or get a good night's sleep, depending on where you are.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Good night.
Bye. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Cheers.